9:30. I was waiting for it to actually say 9:30 on this. Well, it's not a cell phone, tablet. But we're at 1 Timothy chapter 3. 1 Timothy chapter 3. Y'all are quiet in here this morning. Not a lot of chatting going on. But there's some neat things here to talk about in 1 Timothy chapter 3. Again, this is Paul's letter to Timothy, giving Timothy some instructions on I ran into a spider web when I went on check on Mom and Dad this morning, and I keep feeling it on myself. Paul was writing Timothy to give him some instructions on some things that he wanted Timothy to do. And this letter gives him not only those instructions, but the authority to execute those instructions. So the other people who might see this letter also, or Timothy could show them, Paul has commissioned me to do this. So in chapter 3, one of the things that he keys on is the leadership in the congregations. So he first talks about the overseers, the bishops, elders, and then starting in verse 8, he starts talking about the deacons. So the first verse, this is a faithful saying, if a man desires the position of a bishop, he desires a good work. So from that saying, we can kind of see Paul's kind of commending there for people to desire to be in the leadership, not something to be shunned. You know, it's kind of humbling when a congregation is looking for elders, and you know, there's people who may be thinking, well, I might do it, or I might not do it. Sometimes we find ourselves kind of in the desire, but maybe sometimes we don't have all the confidence that we need to be the one to do that. And sometimes that holds people back from stepping up. Now, you also see the other extreme, people who, they just want to be in charge all the time. And you know, that's kind of talked about in here as well. But the general idea of this is a good work. This is a good thing. And then the first thing he talks about, we're going to break these down one at a time. I don't really plan to go over to Titus, where there's also a good list of ideas of the qualifications needed for an elder. It's almost identical, not exactly identical, but very similar to what he's instructed Timothy. But the first one is, a bishop then must be blameless. Now, if you read that in the New American Standard 20 edition, it says the overseer must be above reproach. Now, blameless. When I hear the word blameless, you know, a lot of times we hear that word a lot of times used when people say, don't blame me. And that is, make an accusation of me for something. Is kind of the way I hear it used more often than not. Or I blame that person for this situation. I think they are at fault for what happened. Sometimes you'll see that. But it's not saying a bishop must be perfect. So somewhere between blameless and perfect. They've got to be at least blameless, but he's not saying they have to be perfect. So blameless, you know, a lot of it has to do with accusations. Are they subject to accusations? Can you tell in things in their lives that you can say, yeah, they bear some negative responsibility for some things that could happen? That might hold you back. A lot of these they're I'm not, fuzzy's not the right word. It's hard to see sometimes a clear yes or no on everybody, a black or white. Sometimes it's kind of like, well, they're more this way than they are this way. And I think a lot of that is for the elder or the deacon really to look at themselves, because it's kind of humbling when you go through yourself and you're saying, well, I need to meet these qualifications. And then you sit there and look, am I blameless? Well, it's a little easier, sometimes you can see things in yourself. I need to be sure I am living my life so that I can be blameless. And that would help me to qualify. If I'm going to be in this role, or if I aspire to be in this role, I need to push myself to live that way. There again, everyone has blame, has had sin in their lives. So we're not going to find a sinless person. That can't be the criteria. We can't make it that extreme, looking for sinlessness or perfection, but we can look at, in general, how does this person appear? Sometimes they're hard to pinpoint exactly on one side or the other. And we're going to see some more of them that are like that, other than just being blameless. But some of these qualifications are pretty black and white. You can tell real quick whether or not the qualification is something that they're going to fit for. The very next one, the husband of one wife. That's easy to see. There we can see also that the bishop needs to be a man. Also we can see he needs to be married. Now some will look at this and say, some would say, this only applies if he's married. He doesn't need to have more than one. I don't know where they got that. I mean, obviously polygamy was an issue more in the first century and before, but he's not saying that. He's saying the husband of one wife. He didn't say not a polygamist, because then, a single person would qualify as not a polygamist, but only a married person could say they were the husband of one wife. Now, this brings up some other questions, though. Sometimes even though it's black and white, a married man. Even in that, there's some kind of questions that come up when we're thinking about somebody that, should they still be an elder in the church? Such as a situation where you may have someone who is scripturally divorced. Now, this person is not any guilt of their own. Their spouse left them for another person. And say they've remarried. They're the husband of one wife. They're not the one who was, as we can see, was guilty of adultery in the relationship. But should that person be considered for an elder? I don't know exactly the answer to that question. I know there's a question in my mind that would arise if a person had been, obviously for an unscriptural divorce, that would be any reason other than for fornication or adultery on the part of the person being considered for an elder. That would disqualify them. But if they were scripturally divorced and perhaps remarried, then technically I think they might get a yes on this, but our better judgment might come into play if that's something that we should consider. I don't want to be one up here and say, no, never. because that's not clear from right here that it says no, never. That can't happen. But I also think that could be a hindrance to the person trying to serve as an elder. Another thing that I have heard mentioned before, and I've heard this by some people that I have a lot of respect for and I consider close friends, respect their Bible knowledge, and that would be a widowed person who had remarried. Would they be considered someone that could be an elder or a deacon? They're the husband of one wife right now, but in total in their life they've had two. Now, I think that's not what he's trying to say. There I would say, yeah, that would be a yes, that he could. However, again, I think we might want to consider the unity of the church in making that decision. And if there's a vast feeling that could be a problem, it might be the situation where the person considering the responsibility for being an elder or a deacon might want to pull themselves out of consideration if it's going to be an issue. Now, myself, I was widowed, I've remarried, and now I'm serving as a deacon. So you can see what I think about it. I think it's fine to do that, but not everybody does. Even some faithful people don't. And if that got to be an issue that could cause some unity problems in a congregation, I think I'd take myself out of the situation in the interest of the unity. By the same token, if they think that, I think they might need to kind of bite their tongue a little bit for the unity of the situation, because it's not exactly saying 100% right here which way that goes, and we have to use some kind of sound judgment. So you can see in those two situations, in one of them I said this leans toward a yes, and the other one I said it leans toward a no. But in neither one of them does it say exactly right here what applies in the situation of a man who had been scripturally divorced and remarried, and in the man who had been widowed and remarried. So you can see there, even in this, there's some judgment that comes into play. Yes, sir.
In those two situations, I think they're exactly opposite of each other. One, your wife passed away. There's no question about that. So now you're the husband of no wife. So then when you marry, you're the husband of one wife.
Yeah.
However, if a person is married and that marriage doesn't work out and she leaves, there is the possibility that that person did not do enough to hold that marriage together, which would necessarily implicate him as not being qualified, I believe. And what you're talking about, keeping the unity of the church, sometimes that can be very difficult.
Yeah.
There are people that will get upset at the drop of a hat over almost nothing.
Right.
If there's anything that might do it, I think that might do it.
If the time to bring it up, I think is before the man is serving in these positions, because that kind of keeps it from becoming as much of an issue in a congregation. But nonetheless, that's something to think about. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yeah, okay. All right. All right, there's not any more comments that you're spinning around in the back of your mind about that one and want to say something about it. Yeah?
Looking at it, strictly from this logic standpoint, if a spouse, if in this case, talking about elders, if the wife left the husband, logically, he is dead, she is dead to him, because she has transgressed their vows, and through probably no fault of his own, he is now wifeless. But I still think, that person can still do lots of things
Yeah.
at the church. I mean, it's a high position, and it's a godly position, but, for the sake of unity, that person just, in my opinion, does not need to do that because of the possibility of disunity.
Yeah.
And that same person could just hit the gas and do a lot of the things that the elders might need done, and help the elders, help the deacons, just help the church, without actually having an entitlement to elder.
True. And that's the same thing for a man who may have been single his whole life. He may not be able to serve as an elder, but there's a lot of work in the church that person could do. Of course, we're talking specifically on the leadership that comes into play. All right. Let's see. The next one, temperate. Temperate, sober-minded, of good behavior. If you read in the New American Standard, temperate, self-controlled, respectable. All kind of go together. Again, some of these are, well, where are they on the scale of being self-controlled? I don't know anybody who has never lost control a little bit. But I think we've got to think in general, they've got to be somebody who can control their emotions, control their tongue, control their actions. They've got to be way on the other side instead of somebody way on this other, on the bad side of that. Of this idea, and sometimes I'm not sure, I wonder how some of these words get translated from one. It seems like it's a really, really different in a different translations. Like the New King James uses the word of good behavior. The New American Standard 2020 edition uses the word respectable for the same thing. So respectable kind of seems to me sort of like the blameless thing a little bit, but of good behavior, well, somebody behaves themselves. So you can see these are, a lot can be the elder or the deacon in those situations examining themselves and pushing themselves to live like they ought to. A lot of these apply to every member of the congregation, man or woman, that needs to consider these. All of us need to have self-control. All of us need to be temperate in the things we say. All of us need to be of good behavior. But I think we're looking for someone as an elder that we can obviously see they're not having a problem in their lives with this kind of coming up continually. Like, let's say a person flies off the handle about things every now and then, but they repent. They admit they were wrong. Oh, I shouldn't have flown off the handle. And then 6 months later, they fly off the handle about something else. And they're all mad and everything. And then, I repent. I shouldn't have done that. And then 2 weeks later, they fly off the handle again. I shouldn't have, been that way. Well, yes, we need to forgive, but also consider that's a problem for that person that could create a problem for them in the leadership role at some point. One time in their life, yeah, we're all going to, make mistakes and do things wrong. But a pattern of it is something I think we need to be considering in that. The next one, hospitable. Now, that one kind of steps on my toes sometimes, because sometimes I don't want to have people over for supper. I just want to sit here and read my book on the screen porch. I merely say, let's have somebody over. And okay. Well, when they come, I'm nice, but it might not be the thing that I'm really striving to be hospitable. But I think we can see it also maybe in the visitors that come and might come to worship with us. We might want to think twice maybe about an elder that never talks to visitors. Are they being hospitable if they don't have to welcome every single person every time, but when they are introduced to somebody, are they friendly toward them? Might be something to think about. Here again, this is kind of a thing on a scale, to somebody being friendly to somebody. The next one, apt to teach, or able to teach, or in the New American Standard, skillful to teach. Now that one is one sometimes some people who are really good people, knowledgeable of the scriptures, have a lot of these other qualifications they've got, but they struggle being able to teach. Things they can do, one, they can learn how. It might take some work, but they can push themselves to learn how to teach. And it's not something we want somebody doing after they're already an elder. Now go learn how to teach. We want somebody that is demonstrated that. And it's not necessarily talking about being a preacher from the pulpit or a teacher in a class. It could be teaching one-on-one. Some people are much better at one-on-one teaching than they are in public teaching. Some people are really good at the public teaching, but the one-on-one, they're not as good. But either one has shown some ability to teach. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Between apt and able? Not yet. I was thinking one was just a little more archaic than the other. But maybe there's more to it than that.
Well, apt, it wasn't in my Strong's definition. It doesn't have apt as far as I.
Mm-hmm.
But when I looked up apt, it says well, it doesn't say a whole lot.
Okay. Likely to? Likely to? Okay. That might be more likely to teach than somebody else. Again, we don't want to put too much emphasis on one particular qualification. And it doesn't say how apt do they need to be. One of the things Mary Lee does, or she's done with teachers, and she's served as a principal a lot, is try to help teachers become better teachers. And some teachers just naturally got it, it sounds like. It sounds like they know what they're doing. They learned from good teachers when they were in school. They learned from good teachers when they got their training, and they're really able to do it. Others, they have a lot of good qualities about that person, but they may struggle on teaching. And so she's trying to help them with the baby steps on becoming a better teacher in their position. Put them in a grade level that's better apt for where they, I'll use that word apt, better for where they are, and is a better fit. And the plan is that person who may be a weak teacher becomes a stronger teacher. May become a really good one after a while. And I think the same thing can apply to elders. They may be weak in that area, but they can work on it. They can work on it themselves. Like I said, when I read through this, a lot of times you have to do a lot of looking at yourself if you're able to meet this. And some people may look through this list and just go, I can't do this. There's not just because there's one or two, I've got about 4 areas in here that I am struggling with, and I'm just not a teacher person at all. And so they may feel like that. They may feel like they're not under self-control. They may look at several things and just pull themselves out. And that might be one of the factors that causes them to pull themselves out.
Steve,
Yes?
you and Doug have both been elders, and you two would know the extent of volume of work within the eldership and what that means to you as far as if you want to use the word stress. I know it's a stressful job, but does that amount of work involved in being an elder leave you the time to do a diligent study to teach like a class or something, or should that be depending on men within the church that are also able to
Okay.
see what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're saying if somebody serving as an elder, does being an elder take up so much of their time that they probably can't teach? I wouldn't think so, because I would think someone serving as an elder has the word so understood that they can step into that role and teach. And they're not only teaching class. I can remember elders meetings where we were teaching each other how to better handle a situation. If a lot of people will go to the polishing the pulpit classes that they have in, I think it's around Gatlinburg, Pigeon Forge, and I've been several times, haven't been a long time. But they have a lot of classes over a lot of topics. But a lot of those topics are elder or deacon specific. And they're really geared toward helping the elders be a better elder. The elders have time to learn how to do better, what they're doing. Now, yeah, it's stressful. Only heart attack I ever had, I had while I was an elder. So it can be very stressful and have a lot of sleepless nights.
Well, one thing it doesn't say is apt to teach class.
Right.
So,
Right.
they're prone to try to help people learn.
Yes.
That's teaching also.
That's teaching also. That's right. I agree. More than just teaching class, it's teaching individuals, teaching small groups, teaching each other. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes. Right. Yeah, some are better one-on-one, yeah.
you know, and teaching them the gospel and converting.
Yes,
Others are maybe are better able in smaller classroom settings,
yes.
larger classroom settings.
Right. So the different settings, different people have different skill levels shown. All right, let's go on to next verse. Not given to wine, or in the New American Standard, not overindulging in wine. So some of these qualifications are positive, some of them are negatives, and this is one of the negatives. It's saying not doing something. Another one here, this one is given to wine. If an elder's out drinking alcoholic beverages, his influence will be destroyed. He's leading people in the wrong path, causing other people to stumble in sin, as well as showing he's not in control himself. And, you know, we can see Proverbs 23:31. That's one of the verses that they knew about here in the New Testament from the Old Testament. Another one here is Proverbs 20, verse 1, where the teachings of Solomon clearly show that the use of the alcohol was wrong. So they've got to be careful about that. This next one says, depending here, and here's two different translations here of the same part of it. So look at this one. One says, not a bully. I say not a bully in the New American Standard 20. And then I see over in the New King James, not violent. So it's kind of putting those two together. You know, you can kind of see, well, one's one way a little bit, another one actually involves some physical violence. Now, I haven't been involved in any myself, but I've seen situations where an elder kind of have tried to be a bully, kind of use their position of authority to try to push people around a little bit. Sometimes the preacher, they would kind of bully the preacher on some things to do things or not do things, and you can't have that situation. Violent, I think we can clearly see what that is. Somebody who, here's the negative, somebody who is not, you don't want somebody that's prone to getting in fights all the time. If they're having to settle everything with fists all the time, then okay, we probably got a problem. Yep. Which one? Where are we going?
Not given to wine.
Yes.
So can we conclude, one says not given to much wine, and another one says not given to wine. The King James and the New King James both say not given to wine. And due to the fact that up in verse 2 it says sober-minded, since alcohol can only be drank for one reason, the conclusion is that if you drink, you're going to become not sober-minded. So,
True.
Can we conclude that this means no wine?
That's what I conclude for sure. Yes, I don't see any problem with that at all. Now, sober-minded, I think it's broader than just the effect of being sober from drink. It has the idea of a seriousness to that person. Is what I see in being sober-minded. You don't want somebody who's silly all the time. I mean, there's times to have fun and laugh at things, but some people are just almost silly. And I think that's kind of the idea I get from sober-minded, is more than just the alcohol, although the alcohol can contribute to someone not being sober. And you say, well, how much does it take to be drunk? Well, how much does it take to lie? I mean, if you lie a little bit, you lied. If you're drinking, you may not be falling over drunk, but you're a tad drunk. You're on that scale. You're impaired a tad, and you're on that scale of becoming drunk. All right.
Soberness give an indication of being clear thinking,
Clear thinking, right?
discern, to look at the entire situation and be able to make a
Yes.
clear judgment.
Good, clear judgment. Right. Now, I think by implication, now here, I think here's he uses the word wine. And in today's culture, there's lots of different beverages that are alcoholic beverages that we don't call a bottle of wine. Does whiskey come in a can? It might, but a can of beer, a can of whiskey, or champagne, a can of champagne, or maybe it's in bottles too. Champagne, different things are very, very similar in nature to wine, but there's also other things that can impair judgment and cause this lack of sobriety. Drugs, legal or illegal drugs. Most of the things that are illegal drugs are there for a purpose, is because societies in general seen people have a lot of problems with them. But there's also legal drugs that people can take that they don't sometimes take correctly, and they can also cause an impairment on a person. Now, that's not saying you can't take a drug to heal a problem. Even with alcohol, we can see later in Timothy, he told Timothy, drink a little wine for your stomach's sake. He's saying there may be a medical reason to have some of these things for someone in different situations. And obviously for a medical purpose is a little different than someone who is just recreationally taking these things. That we need to consider and think about too. Yes, ma'am. Addicted? Yes. Right. So people to get addicted to wine would obviously be a disqualification that was taken that much.
Nobody's ever going to become an alcoholic if they don't start drinking.
That's right. Right.
That to me, spiritually, that settles the matter.
Yes. Right. You can avoid it. You can't avoid it. Now, I see this one, and this one you kind of see out of order between what I read in the New King James, New American Standard. In the New King James, the next one I see was not greedy for money. In the New American Standard, I see at the end of the verse, it says free from the love of money, which kind of, the love of money is kind of the definition of greedy for money. And there again, how do we know if somebody's greedy for money or not? Well, one, they might just tell you they are. And if they tell you are, then you obviously you got a problem. But a lot of this self-examination of the person who is considered to be an elder. Am I being greedy? Am I being a lover of money? If I'm having that problem, I might not need to serve. I need to get this straightened out in my life first before I step into that role. It's hard to see inside of other people's hearts and their motives of why they do certain things. Now, somebody may be a really good businessman and make good money on buying and selling cars or land or houses but that doesn't make him a lover of money, because he is working in business and making good money. That doesn't make him a lover of money. That doesn't make him greedy. He's providing a service to people for a price. So that's obviously not what he's saying, that you can't be someone who is trying to be successful in their business dealings. But will that love of money or that greed cause them to make incorrect decisions so that they can do something to satisfy themselves with the results of the transaction? That's what they've kind of got to be careful of. Yes, ma'am. Yes. Okay, could that be an indication? It's a fair question. Somebody who is working way too much with their time. And there again, I have a hard time telling somebody who is putting in a lot of hours overtime, providing for his family, that you're working too much and you need to not love money so much and just live off less money. Well, I can't do that. This kind of thing, they've got to judge themselves as to what they're doing. What is their motivation by working all the extra overtime, by trying to get the money that way? It's kind of hard to tell on the outside what somebody's doing. Okay, I knew we wouldn't get very far, and we didn't, so we'll continue. Hopefully, a lot of the ones on the deacons are kind of similar to the elders, so maybe we'll get through those a little quicker. We'll just say, just like on the elders. But all right, so we'll pick up there. Shoot, we didn't get but about 4 or 5 verses.